Hello, friends. Welcome aboard the Round Trip Stories podcast, where we share stories of moving around the world and back again, reflecting on the lessons we've learned along the way. My name is Tracy.
And my name is Melissa, and we are so glad you're joining us for today's episode. Our guest today is Stacy Hipwood, international teacher, mother, and wife who is passionate about Kenya and holding up her family. Stacy fell in love with Nairobi and stayed for 11 years, teaching, marrying, and raising her 2 children. Her transition to living in Kenya was supported by her connection to friends who became like family. Even though long utility outages just about drove her out of the country, the culture of focusing on relationships and caring for others kept her family rooted, hoping to never leave. So buckle your seatbelts and make sure your tray tables and seats are in their upright positions as part 1 of Stacy's round trip story gets ready for takeoff. Well, we are so excited today to have Stacy Hipwood join us for our Round Trip Stories podcast. Thank you, Stacy, for being a guest on our podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
So Stacy is somebody that Tracy and I both actually worked with at a charter school, at the charter school where I met Tracy. But I've known Stacy since we were students at Fresno Pacific College together, which is where Tracy now works. Yay! All these little connections. So anyway, so we're so happy, Stacy, to have you join us. So let's start with the backstory. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family, maybe where you grew up, and then when you moved abroad, where did you go and why?
Right. So I grew up here in Fresno. My parents still live here and, went to college, like you said, at Fresno Pacific, got my teaching credential. And then actually before I went to Kenya, so I taught for like 2 or 3 years. And then I went to a school of discipleship through the Vineyard Church up in Canada, which then after that, I actually went to Hong Kong for 6 months.
Oh.
I had always known that I wanted to do something overseas. I wanted to travel. I don't know where that came from because nobody in my family did that, but I just knew I wanted to do that. So that was kind of the jumping point for me, was doing it after that as part of that school of discipleship.
Yeah.
And then while I was there, I reached out to some missionary friends who lived in Nairobi, Kenya. I really wanted to teach, but I didn't want to teach in an American school. And so they connected me up with a lady who had this ministry called AIC Special Ministries. And she basically said, yeah, we can use you teaching English in the slums of Kibera, which is a huge slum of like 1 million people,
Wow.
right in the middle of the city. She said, if you can get the support and get over here, we can get you a work permit and you can work for a year. So that's how I got out there. And I was originally supposed to just stay for a year and do that.
Okay. And so how long did you end up staying?
I ended up being there 11 years total. And I absolutely fell in love with the country. And so I remember as the year was going on, just getting really sad that I was going to have to leave in a year. Mm-hmm. So I was very, very glad that circumstances changed and that I was able to stay longer.
Yes. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you did end up doing there then for the rest of those 10 years.
So while I was there, that year I was there, I was attending a Bible study with a lot of different expats from other countries, not just America, but other European countries and Australia and different places. And in that Bible study, I met the man who is now my husband, and his name is Terry, and he was from England, and he was actually had a business out there in Kenya, so he was not a missionary. He actually had already lived there for 6 or 7 years when I met him, and he had become a Christian out there while he was in Kenya and started going to this Bible study, which is where I met him. And so that is why I ended up staying longer is that we got engaged, got married, had our kids there, and then I was working, before our kids were born, I was working in an international school there in Nairobi. And then when our kids were born, I was a stay-at-home mom for the rest of that time. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's a great reason to stay in Kenya.
Yes. But tell us real quick, when did you leave Kenya?
We left in June 2007, so it's been 16. Yeah, that would have been, this last summer was 16 years.
Okay, well, right now we're going to be talking about your time living there. And I know you lived there a long time. So of course, we're just going to scratch the surface. But tell us a story about your initial transition and adjustment to Kenya.
Well, I think it was good that I lived with some missionary friends who had been there a very long time. They let me live there with them for a few months. So that was very helpful. They really helped me adjust and, taught me how to use the public transport system, which was crazy. And they're an American family, and I've known them since I was little. So it felt like living with my parents, and so that was really helpful. One of the big things was just navigating the public transport system because I didn't have a vehicle. I really didn't want to drive there initially.
Right.
And, they had these things called matatus that were like these vans that you would hop on, hop off, and they'd pack like 25 people in them. And
they weren't made for 25 people, right?
No. They just squished more and more people in. And so just getting used to that, like what they value, how just all the systems work. Just everything that's normal here is just not normal there. But it was very helpful living with this family and that they took me in. I can't remember feeling like it was just this major culture shock and I was just like in a stressed mode all the time.
That's good.
Felt comfortable and normal and exciting, And I worked all with Kenyans, like the other guys in the office that I worked with, except for the lady who ran the ministry, who was American. It was me and like 5 or 6 Kenyan guys. And then I was teaching in the slums with Kenya. I mean, so just that and the norms of just the cultural norms and how they do things and how we do things. So, working all day, every day with Kenyans and thrown into that. So it was actually nice to live with Americans because it was nice just to kind of not have to think about, am I being culturally appropriate all the time?
Yeah. No, I can totally see how having some people to help you learn how to get around and help you have a place where you could land, at the end of the day. I can see that would have been super helpful. That's really neat. I love that.
And Stacy, do you think that your experience of being outside of your country in Canada and Hong Kong, do you think that helped influence how it wasn't such a huge culture shock because you had already been and lived outside your country twice? Yeah,
I'm sure that did help because even at that school of discipleship in Canada, like my roommate was German. So, there were people from all over. And then when I worked in Hong Kong, there were people from all over working there. And so, I guess that probably really did help with the transition. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that before, but yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense because the more you experience different cultures, I think the more flexible our worldview becomes and we adjust and accept things maybe faster. At least we hope so.
Yeah.
And also, your point about how you were around other international people when you were in Canada and when you were in Hong Kong, and you weren't just around Canadians or just around Hong Kongers.
Yeah, right.
So that also helps to broaden our worldview and understand other people.
Yeah.
All right, Stacy, tell us a story about something that was hard.
So living most of my life in a country where water, electricity, phone lines, everything is just always working. I think for me that I can say that was probably one of the most stressful things about living there was we didn't know, are we going to get water this week? Are our tanks going to fill up? Because we had, so kind of moving forward a little bit after we were married and we had our house, there's a tank in the roof and then water would fill up. And it usually would come like on whatever day, let's say Monday. And when we'd hear that water, we'd go, oh, good, it's coming. But sometimes it wouldn't come and you're like, okay, are we going to get water? And you have to start conserving. Or, they had all the time planned electrical outages, but not just planned. There would be unplanned too. So you'd have your planned and then, there would also be unplanned. Yeah, there was at one point where they had it for they'd run out of electricity and had to borrow from Uganda or buy from Uganda. And there was 4 days a week we had no power from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Wow.
And this went on for probably, 8 months or something like that. So that was really hard. And then phone lines, and so you just, having all of those things at once was like, oh, yay, we have electricity, we have our phone line, we have water,
It's amazing that how much we in North America, in particular, we take those things for granted because it's just a given that we're in most places in our country that we don't have to worry about that.
Right. And you don't think about it even.
Right.
Until you don't have it. And so I would say overall, for the whole time I was there, that was probably one of the hardest things. And I never really got used to it. It was always like, ugh. And when they had those planned ones for that long period of time, 4 days a week for 12 hours, I'd probably been there about 4 or 5 years at that point. And that was probably the only time where I remember telling Terry, I go, okay, this is about enough to make me move back to America. It got so tiring. And just knowing, okay, I'm really tired of dealing with this and I don't want to deal with it anymore. But then that stopped. And we still had power outages, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that extreme. So I would just say overall that was the hardest thing for me. And then the dial-up. So, I'm trying to communicate with people back home and email, and then that would be down, and we'd go every day down the street to the phone place, and they'd always tell us it will be fixed tomorrow. And I think tomorrow just meant sometime in the future. It didn't really mean tomorrow because they'd say that again and again and again.
Just means eventually. It'll be fixed eventually.
You're just so that was definitely for me just the hardest thing to adjust to throughout my time there.
Yeah. What you just described is a tipping point, right? Well, when you said you almost left, having that inconsistency in power and utilities and how it affected your life, was almost a tipping point. Good thing Kenya gave you electricity back, so then you stayed.
I know. Yeah, for sure. And the funny thing is, because that was the year before Daniel was born, and there was a whole bunch of babies born that year. Year, which was like a big joke.
Because there were no lights, so you
it got dark at 6 o'clock, 6:30. We're on the equator, so it doesn't stay light till, and so there was this big joke that all these babies were born.
The power outage babies.
I know. Yeah.
All right. Now tell us something that you loved about living in Kenya.
Oh, I have to say the people. I love the focus on relationships that the Kenyan people have. So they don't care really about timekeeping or, finishing a task within a certain amount. It's if you're late and you go, oh, well, I ran into my cousin okay. I mean, it's
Of course.
it doesn't, because they're so focused on relationships, and I loved that. And even the people not of Kenyan origin who lived there, it was a very relational place. You could just show up to someone's house and go, hi, or someone could just show up to your house. I loved that part of life, that just, you could just hanging out with people and talking was just normal. It was just a normal part of life. And I loved that. I loved the focus on the slower pace. That's probably what I miss the most from my time there. But that's what I loved. Kenyan people, other people, our church, our home group, everybody just really took time. It was very people focused.
Yeah.
So, and I had a little baby group with all these babies that were born in our neighborhood. One of the things is there are a lot of white Kenyans there. So they're Kenyan, they hold Kenyan passports, but they're descendants of the people who colonized. And
Okay.
They're British, they're descendants from English people who came out years ago.
Yeah.
And so there's a big community of white Kenyan people. And so that was kind of where we lived in our neighborhood, was a lot of them. And we all had babies. And so we'd get together with the moms and the babies, and it was just so, like, we would just hang out for hours together, like once a week kind of a thing. And I just loved all the different people I got to meet from everywhere and every background. So that's what I loved the most, easily what I loved the most.
What language do they speak in Kenya?
So the common language, well, most of them in Nairobi will speak English, but is Swahili or Kiswahili.
Okay.
But then there's, my husband knows the exact number of tribes. I don't know, around 40 something tribes. And so they have tribal languages too within their tribes. But Swahili is the language of East Africa.
Okay, but Kenya was colonized by Britain, so English is one of the main.
Especially in Nairobi. If you go up country, and which I did sometimes with the ministry that I was working with, and they didn't speak English up there. But in Nairobi, and Nairobi's such an international city. I mean, there's people from hundreds of different cultures there. So yeah.
And what's the main industries in Nairobi? Like, why are there international people there?
Well, because all the embassies are there. The UN is there. There's a lot of international businesses there. But the main,
probably manufacturing and
and tourism and coffee and tea would be the big. But there's a lot of Chinese businesses there. There's a lot of Indian businesses there. There's just a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures living there. So I didn't just get to interact with, my first year there, I was just working with Kenyans. But then if you go beyond that and you start, like at that international school, oh my goodness, all my students were from Sweden and Korea and just all over.
All over the
Italy,
place.
all over. Yeah.
That's kind of like what your experience was like in China. And it's the opposite of what my experience was like in Peru. In the parts of Peru where we were. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that we're talking about this, Stacy, because capital cities can be so international. And so when we go overseas, we're not just going to be for the people from that country. We're going to be from all over the world. Okay. Anything else that surprised you?
Okay, so on that vein, what I loved about that and what was really surprising was how, because a lot of us didn't have family out there, a lot of people, so you became like family. So you would celebrate the holidays with, these people that weren't your family, but they were like family. And when somebody needed something or like what I'm going to tell about later with my husband and what happened to him, and this community that both from the church and outside the church that just came and surrounded and provided and helped, that not one was related to me, but we were all like family, because you're all in a different place. And so you're kind of bonding, together. So that was a very pleasant surprise. The other thing that really surprised me, so it was very normal to have like house help or gardeners or drivers. And that was a very weird thing to me because I wasn't used to that.
Right.
And I remember feeling like this seems really weird. Like it just seems reminiscent of like
colonialism.
Yes. Yeah. But when we had our house after we were married and we rented a house and we actually had our house help. Her name was Evelyn. And then we had Evans, who was our cook, and we had David, who was our gardener. And, you know, when their kids got sick, I would put them in my car and take them to the doctor. And they almost become like family to you.
Right.
So when I shifted my thought of, oh, we're providing for 3 families for their kids' school fees and for food on their table and for their rent. And, you know, rather than, oh, this is.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
When you first see it, you're like, okay, that seems really wrong.
I think especially for those of us that grew up in middle class North America, some people had a housekeeper, a house cleaner, or, you know, gardeners.
Or like once
eventually,
a week.
You know, but it's not quite the same. But I agree. I think that it's all about how your perspective. Like when I had some, you know, ladies helping me take care of my house, they were helping me because I needed help and I couldn't manage it by myself and I needed them.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we were in China, I appreciated it with small children. At one point we had 2 babies in the house. We were helping to take care of another baby. And that was the tipping point where we needed some more help. And even though I wasn't working full time, but just to have another person help with food and help with the cleaning, and you have more laboral jobs. I think that in the United States we have the dishwasher, we have the washer and dryer. We don't hang our clothes.
Right. And with our kids were born, and Evelyn loved my children. Like she loved them. And when we had to leave her and leave, I mean, that was heart-wrenching for the kids, for me, for her. They become a part of your lives.
Yeah. And I think it's good to talk about this some because we know that this is absolutely an issue that when people move to other countries, they're going to have to wrestle with. And especially if they're coming from our context and moving to another country where it's more common to hire someone to help you in your home with you. I think it's a common thing that takes time for people to wrap their heads around and get used to how to do it well. And because most of us haven't been employers also. Right. We've only been employees.
That's true too. But rather than, you know, I think our American mindset is jumping to, oh, that's terrible, I'm not going to do that. But from their perspective, it was like, you're not going to hire someone. You're going to come to our country and live, and you're not going to support someone to support their family. You're not going to, you know, it was seen as offensive to just say, oh, I'm going to do it all myself.
Isn't that interesting?
Right. So wherever we go, I mean, Europe, you probably wouldn't have this issue, right? In the United States, if somebody comes here, they're probably not going to hire domestic help. But Latin America, Africa, Asia, it's common. And so, it's something that we all have to, we women, right? Mostly it's women, we're wrestling with it, depending on our context, like you said, Melissa.
So you've already shared some, Stacy, of the things that you learned, but do you have any last things to share with us about what you learned about yourself and then also what you learned about the world as a result of living there?
Yeah, well, I learned that I absolutely love Africa, or the part I was in. Got to visit a few other countries, but I love it so much, and anything that I can, you know, any documentaries or anything I can catch on that. And I guess just learning that I'm adaptable, and I've had to learn to be flexible, and I think I grew a lot while I was there. And I hope to go back someday. We've never been back, but I love it there. And then about the world, I think the biggest thing I learned is America is not the center of the universe. I mean,
What?
yeah,
What?
I mean, it was so, I just thought, gosh, we're so inward focused here. Like the news is all about us, right? Unless something huge is happening, but when I was in Kenya and we would watch Sky News, which was European news program, and it would give news from all over the world, like all over. It was based in England, but it would, okay, this is happening in India, this is happening, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I loved that. I love that I heard about everywhere, and realizing that the majority of people in the world are not American and probably really don't care about America,
Yeah.
And just the values of different cultures, how our values in America, it's so different in different places, and that we're not right by any stretch of the imagination. It's not like a right and wrong thing. It's just what you value. So I think just having my values challenged, or just that part, just going, oh, okay, well, I don't know. I've always done it that way, but it doesn't have to be done that way. Like that's just,
right.
An American Western way of thinking.
And I found when I was overseas, people knew so much about my country, and I didn't know very much about theirs.
Right.
And I think it would be so good if here in the U.S., it would be good to know more about the world. And that's why we're doing this.
Yes, exactly.
Yay. Well, thanks, Stacy, for sharing. When people move to other places and then come back, sometimes it's easy to focus on the coming back, especially when it was something unexpected and hard, as we will get to hear about in your, the next part of your story. So I was thinking as you were sharing, I'm just so grateful that we take the time to hear about both parts of the journey, because it's neat to hear the stories about the time that you were there. And so thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It's been good. It's been fun to just kind of relive that and go, oh yeah, that was a thing I had to deal with, or that was shocking, or that was how it was. And so it's been nice for me too, just to revisit, all of those memories. Yeah.
Thank you, Stacy, for sharing your round trip stories from Kenya. Stacy found her home in Nairobi, Kenya, where she met and married her British husband and established a life there for 11 years. She deeply loved both the local Kenyans, black and white, and her international community. She learned to be adaptable and flexible, and that her home country, the U.S., was certainly not the center of the world. She came to understand that some customs are not right or wrong, but it's the values that are different. So what happened when her husband's near-death brain aneurysm had Stacy packing up to leave a place she loved? You'll have to make a return trip to our podcast for part 2 of Stacy's round trip story.
Want the podcast equivalent of early boarding and first-class seating? Be sure to subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed this podcast, would you consider sharing it with your fellow globetrotting friends? We would love to encourage them too.
As this episode lands, we hope these stories have encouraged you, helped you find some more of your belongings, and made your baggage a little lighter. Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.
My husband is from Latin America, right? So he grew up with domestic help.
Yes.
And so I struggle with him. I mean, growing up like that. And then now I live with him.
Are you
and
saying
I love
that your
him.
house doesn't look like you have domestic helpers there every day, Tracy?
My house is a mess. So because I won't pick up after my kids, because I'm not going to do that. I am helping them notice the stuff that's on their ground, so then they will help it. Yeah, like they'll say, oh my gosh, our house is so messy. And I'm like, great, now do something about it,
Right.
Anyways, we all
so
have our
funny.
struggles.
Yep.
Yes, yes, yep.